on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine, and your host of the RodCAST, the all-encompassing car show where we talk about all things automotive. And today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, and editor of Engine Labs and all-around tech guru. What's up, Greg? Sorry, I was waiting
Vinny.
to load
Dude,
up on the screen.
you've got a lot of latitude for this one because you just got out of some pretty fun stuff.
Yeah, man, my brain is kind of like discombobulated. I'm a little like jostled. I'm trying to get in the sun so you guys can see me and I'm not in the shade. But yeah, so to your point, Greg, today's a special episode because I'm on location. Right now, I'm at Sonoma Raceway here in Sonoma, California for Ford's GT500 North American Track Tour. It's a long title, but very cool because they're going to a bunch of different racetracks all across America, this one being the one on the West Coast. They invited me to come out to drive the new GT500 earlier this year, like early, before COVID and all that, right? And so I was ecstatic. I was like, of course, I would love to come drive it, right?
Who says no to that?
Yeah. But of course, you know, like all things, they were halted because of COVID, right? So I thought, oh, there goes my opportunity to drive this really spectacular supercar, right? And sorry, I'm trying to adjust here. I'm taking a knee, but anyways, yeah. So I thought I had missed my opportunity to drive, a fantastic American supercar. Can I call it a supercar? I think so.
You tell me. I mean,
well, yeah,
I got crap when I called the C8 a supercar, and you can see what logo's on my hat. So of course I want to call it a supercar. You tell me. Is it a supercar?
I think it's a supercar, bro. It's pretty incredible, and we will have a rep from Ford on a future episode where they can delve into the real fine minutia of all the extraordinary engineering that went into making this car fantastic. We can touch on a little bit of it, but for right now, just know this thing's incredible, dude. My initial impressions are, if we can just run down some quick talking points, handling, fantastic, of course. The braking, excellent. Power delivery, just superb, if I can use those words, right? And I don't, and you know me, Greg, I'm not a Ford fanboy. I like all makes and models, but they invited me to come out and drive this car, and I have to give my unbiased opinion. And so far, it's fantastic, man. I drove the car myself here on Sonoma Raceway, and then I was a passenger. As someone drove the car who's much more capable than I am.
So basically someone to scare the pants off of you.
Yeah, man, it was both exhilarating and humbling to be in that car because, you're going around the track and of course you're not pushing it to the limit, but you're giving it what you might feel is the gusto, right? And then you get in the car with someone who really knows how to drive one of these cars and yeah, like you said, scared the pants off you. But so we did that, right? That was fantastic. And then we went out to the drag strip and we did a couple passes. Again, as a passenger, that time I didn't get to drive. They gave us a display for the line lock. They showed us how the trans brake works out on the drag strip. And it was a fantastic day, sponsored by Ford, man. Thanks to those guys for inviting us out. And so I could do this review. Obviously, a forthcoming article is in the works.
But and this is going to be a really cool frame of reference for you because you just got finished with this Dodge stuff and Bondurant. And I mean, being able to compare things is one thing. Being able to compare them with literally within weeks of each other, that's another story.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I was out in Arizona in your neck of the woods with the guys over at Bondurant. A couple episodes ago, we had Mike Kessler on. And we ran down everything that happened during that week that I was at Bondurant. So this is a real apples-to-apples comparison against the Hellcat, as it were, right? At least for me. Two totally different cars. I'll lead with that. While they are both, you could argue that both of them are supercars or like super muscle cars. If you want to coin a phrase or whatever, but they're totally different animals, man. Totally different. I think both of them can do both of these things really well. When I say both, drag strip and like a road course, they can do both of them really well. But I don't know if I'm ready to give my my verdict, right? Like comparing the two. I have to reflect on what I did here today, but I will say that I definitely am using a lot of the tools that I was taught at Bondurant to review this car, right? So that right there is saying a lot. But I mean, this thing's just it's so much fun, man. It's so planted. It handles really well. I mean, it's got these monster Brembos on it. It brakes super good. It was a fun day, Greg. It was a really fun day.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. I do want to touch on something you just said, though. Super muscle car. Are we going to coin a new term? I mean, honestly, I think the market segment now with all these, you know, the latest generation, I guess, of muscle cars that touch on supercar status, I think we might have to create a new category.
Well, I think so, but at the same time, there will be those critics who lambast me for calling this a muscle car. You know, they're going to say, first of all, that's a pony car. Second of all, you know, a lot of people will say that late model cars aren't muscle cars or whatever. But, dude, I mean, this thing's making how many horsepower, Greg?
760?
760 horsepower. If that's not muscle, I don't know what is, man. That's ridiculous. So to imply that it's not a muscle car, I think need to hit refresh on that button.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the whole naming convention, we're still using things that were, you know, developed 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's time for a big reset. I mean, maybe we need to get Jeff Smith involved since, you know, the whole pro touring thing. He knows how these things evolve. Maybe we need to really look into
that right there. That's a super muscle car. I'm telling you, Greg, that's a super muscle car. I'm not sure what the benchmark is, but I would say anything more than 700 horsepower is probably a good start. No?
Yeah, and I mean, you've got there's quite a few competitors there. Like,
yeah. Well, you brought up some interesting questions before I came out here, and those questions will be answered in the article. But you brought up a good point for the GT500 specifically, because it's the new big boy on the block, right? And you asked, you know, were they chasing a horsepower number to rival their competitors, or were they trying to make the most balanced vehicle that they could? After driving it, I think probably the latter. But you know,
well, I mean, it's not a popular thing to say in our circles. Too much power, right? That phrase doesn't exist. But if you think about it, yeah, it can exist. I mean, at some point, you're going to be spending so much time modulating throttle and just trying not to get wheel spin and stuff that you're not going to enjoy driving the car. The car's not going to respond as well. Like, I think when you're after manners, not just raw brutal, like I'm going to smoke my tires in every gear, there is such thing as too much power. When your driving experience is nothing but power management, that's too much power.
Well,
right?
So interestingly enough that you say that, it was an interesting sensation to drive this DCT car, right? Because the Hellcat that I drove was manual. So I'm driving this DCT car, and you know, immediately I get on the track, I switch the dial to drive, and I left it in, you know, just like standard mode. I didn't put it in manual mode, and I put it in track mode. There's 5 different, you know, suspension and handling modes, and I put it in track mode. So as I'm learning how to modulate that throttle, you know, we're just like right here in the pit area, and it was like lurching, right? Almost like when you're not giving a manual transmission enough throttle, right? So I was like, whoa, that's an interesting sensation. It almost feels like a manual transmission, and obviously that's what they're going for, right? So I start going around the track. Again, I didn't use the paddles because I didn't put it in manual mode. I wanted to be in the right gear, you know, the whole time. So I figured let the modern transmission do its thing, right?
The computer's smarter than you, basically.
Exactly. And sure enough, man, I'm scooting around this track, and I got to do about 4 laps, right? 1 warm-up lap, 3 full tilt laps. By the last lap, I just noticed, dude, that it really felt like I was driving a manual car, but I wasn't shifting. It was an interesting sensation. I mean, as you're, you know, slowing into a turn, and you're looking through your progression, you're looking through your turn-in point, you're looking at your apex, you're driving ahead of the car, right? The transmission's doing its thing. You're not having to think about it. But when it's downshifting, you're getting that gratifying like downshift, the decel pops. So it's very similar. It's a weird thing to describe.
Well, that's one thing that I really want to ask Ford is if we're going to start seeing, the maybe not the 9070, but something related to it in some of the lower tiered Mustangs.
Yeah. So they had there was a guy out here. His name's Justin. I don't recall his last name, but he works for Tremec, right? And I asked him that very same question. I said, "Do you think we'll start to see a trickle down effect with that transmission, right?" And you're gonna have to refresh my memory on the nomenclature for this Tremec. It's a
9070, I believe.
Thank you, TR 9070, right? I said, "Are we gonna start seeing that TR 9070 in some lower tier models for the Mustang lineup?" And Justin said, "He really hopes so." While I was here, and I posted some on the Street Muscle Facebook page, I posted some photos of the new Mach 1. And I got to tell you, that thing's incredible, man. It's a really great looking car. But he said, they're in talks about trying to get that new TR into, Mach 1 or maybe a Bullet. So that'd be really interesting. You can actually see, so this silver car, I forgot the name of the silver.
Iconic silver is the color of my car.
Iconic silver. This is the car that I drove today out here on the road course. And good Lord, look at that. Isn't that a sharp looking car?
You don't have to tell me how sharp it is. I bought an iconic silver Mustang.
With the black stripes. Oh, it looks fantastic. So some of the things, I'll show you guys. So check that out, man. Look at each one of these cars that's out here had the carbon package on it. Look how many cars. Look how many cars are out here.
So can you just grab 4 of those wheels and throw them in your bag for me?
Yeah, man. They did hook us up with some gifts, but those were not in the goodie bag, unfortunately. But dude, look at those wheels. They're so freaking cool. And not to mention the size of those Brembo brakes behind them. So they had a really interesting size comparison, right? So they had like the 15-inch wheels from an original GT500 out on display over there, right? And then to juxtapose those wheels, they had the Brembo brakes right next to them, and they're the same size as the entire wheel from back in the day.
Yeah, I mean,
it was awesome.
Well, I mean, even the like basis model Mustang brakes are bigger than the Bears on my 94.
Yeah,
like, man. I mean, yeah, my Bears have better calipers, but I mean, as far as rotor size, that's insane.
So for the 2021 model year, the new high power Mustang is going to wear those not the same as these, but it's going to wear some Brembos. So I really like that about Ford, man. They're doing some interesting things as far as like that trickle down that you're talking about, right? Like where you take some parts from the high performance models in the lineup and you put it in the lower tiers. And that's not revolutionary, but it's still very cool.
Yeah, especially, I mean, that seems like 1960s and 70s kind of like performance engineering that, I don't know, we kind of feel like we lost that in modern times because you can't just swap parts. Well, yeah, you can. Why not? Like, just tell the lawyers and bean counters to go over in the corner while you do something real quick.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that about swapping parts. So, some of the other upgrades that you get with this package are the aero. So right there, you can see you have like some canards. They call them something else. Ford has a proprietary name, but they're canards or canards. I don't know.
Canards.
So you got those. You also have a removable rain shield underneath the vents up here on the hood.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and those canards are removable as well. They're just like some Torx bits, and they say you can take them off in like 10 minutes. If you're going to the drag strip, right? Because this is in full track regalia, if you will.
Yeah. Look at that wing.
So this one has a different wing or spoiler, whichever you prefer. But okay, so you can see that red car back there. It's got the more conventional spoiler, but it's wearing a really cool factory like wicker bill attachment on it.
Is there any chance you can run over and get a shot of that? I don't know if they'll like tackle you or not.
I don't know. There's some people coming right now. They might be kicking me out soon. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be down here, to be honest with you. They've been like super cool with the media, just like letting us run around and drive these cars. But I might be overstaying my welcome. Hopefully, they don't kick me out.
Well, I know they've got a ton of restrictions going on right now.
Well, yeah, but today was super cool because every car, like every person who was out here, had their own car. And then they were sanitizing everything in between, right? So they gave us helmets, they gave us Hans devices, and then they were sanitizing all that stuff throughout the day, right? And so this was a half-day event, but it was really well organized. They walked us through the whole 2021 model year lineup for the Mustang, and then they went into detail on the engineering of some of these performance parts that are on the new GT500. So it was really cool, really well organized, well thought out. Shout out to the whole Ford family, man. It was really cool. But you can see, I'll walk a little bit. Hopefully the camera doesn't get too glitchy. But you got what's this black called? Oh, it's called Shadow Black. I thought that was a really cool name. Then you got what's that blue? It was
that's Ford Performance Blue, isn't it?
No, it's the other one. They have 3 different blues.
Yeah, they have. Wait, I'm trying to go by memory. My brain keeps wanting to say Atlantic Blue, but that's like 30 years ago.
It might be Vivid Blue.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
And then you got the red one has a cool name too. It was Rapid Red, or is that
Rapid Red?
That might be the like burgundy color. Suffice to say, Ford offers a bunch of different colors, like a bag of Skittles.
Yeah, they've always been good. And that green, I feel like we're hearkening back to the Gotta Have It green.
Yeah, well, okay, so that's their Grabber lime, right? And I thought that was an interesting departure from their normal lineup. So they got the Grabber orange, right? That's been a Ford staple for forever, since what, 69.
Well, they did kind of switch, because remember in 17 and 18, because that was the car I was looking at, and I didn't quite care for the orange.
Right.
So they lost the Grabber for a while, but then they went back to it because they realized.
Well, it's iconic. The Grabber blue and the Grabber orange. I mean, that's totally Ford, right? But then they came with this Grabber lime, which is totally interesting. It's almost like, dare I say, a Mopar color. Oh, you're all right, sir. Yeah, it's almost like a Mopar color, right? But it looks fantastic. I mean, I think you could paint this thing brown, and this car would look great.
I think you're right. I mean, that car just looks tough.
You can say a lot about these different cars, right? Some people are Chevy fans, some people are Dodge and Mopar faithfuls, some people love Ford, right? But I think you would be hard pressed, even if you're a fan of any of the other cars, to say that this is not a really sharp looking car, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really killed it on that. They differentiated. Sorry, tongue tied. They differentiated it enough from a standard Mustang, even though I think a standard Mustang looks great. But that front bumper, I mean, you get the track pack on it, especially the carbon fiber track pack, and it just gets ridiculously good looking. And then you put it in my favorite color right there, and
dude. So I was thinking about you when they were like lining us all up, and I was like, ooh, I hope I get the silver one. And sure enough, I got the silver one. Although my favorite color is that blue, but the silver made me think of you, man. It was so cool. So I don't know, Greg, interview me, man, because I just got done driving this thing, and my mind is everywhere. So if you ask me some questions, it'll help me narrow down, my impressions of the car. I guess we could start on the.
Well, I mean, right off the bat. I mean, having you come from the boat, as everybody loves to call it, and I know you don't share that opinion after spending 5 days in one.
I like that it's bigger. It's a touring car. It's a grand touring car, and I think it's fantastic in that role.
How did it feel on the track compared to the Mopars?
Okay, more planted. So I got here early this morning. We're in the Bay Area, so it's pretty wet, right? Like there's a lot of fog around. Yeah. So the track was pretty moist when we got out here, right? heading into turn 2 in Sonoma Raceway, racers will know that that's an uphill sweeping turn. So as I'm hitting the apex on the very first lap, this thing got a little loose on me, right? Again, I'm in track mode, so the driver assists are turned down considerably. But I will say, that was all I needed to find where the threshold was. The learning curve on this thing is much more shallow than on the Challenger. It's a lot more forgiving than the Challenger. The Challenger being a bigger car, longer wheelbase, it'll get sideways on you much easier. Also, it has more horsepower. The braking on this thing was incredible. So trail braking, I found was initially more difficult in the Challenger, in the fact that it was harder to modulate the pedal and find where you needed to be. This one, again, it was more forgiving, right? You could stomp on it and it wasn't going to kill you. It wasn't going to throw you into a slide or something. Even though it was a very firm and positive brake feel. Through the turns, Sonoma's a bumpy track. It's a little bit of a bumpy track, and that's not a detriment, or I'm not talking bad about the track. It's a fact. It's got some, dips and valleys. And because of that, I was concerned going into some of the hairpins that are here. Stayed planted, very well planted. And there wasn't any chatter in the rear end. I mean, these things wear 305 tires at all four corners, I believe. Might be 315s in the rear. And the ones that we took out on the track were wearing Michelin Pilot Cup 2s, I think.
Okay.
So super sticky tire. In those hairpin turns, even though there might be a slight elevation change, it didn't unsettle the car at all. It stayed very well planted. I didn't get to ring the thing out to the 7500 red line that it sports, that flat plane crank.
Crossplane. This one's a crossplane, right?
Crossplane. What's the nickname for this engine?
That one's the Predator.
Thank you, the Predator, right? So I didn't get to wind it out to its full potential. I probably took it to whatever the shift points are under track mode, maybe 6,000 RPM on the straight, and it felt really good. It was awesome.
Well, that actually brings me to my second question. How does the power delivery compare? Because one thing that we've always talked about is that, like, the naturally aspirated versions of the Mopar and the Ford and the Chevrolets, is that the overhead cam Coyote seems to have such linear power delivery that it feels slower. It doesn't give you that seat in the pants or seat of the pants. But this is a blown 5.2 versus the blown.
I was going to say that was not my experience. It was a little bit more twitchy than I thought it was going to be.
I mean, you do have a Roots blower on it, so it's like,
Yeah, it was a little bit more twitchy. It took some getting used to as far as the throttle delivery was concerned. But within one lap, you're good. You find that sweet spot and you're all right. You plant the heel of your foot and you're just, so that was nice. One interesting thing that I found out while I was talking to Justin over at Tremec was that this transmission has when it's in track mode, if you are in a straight line, the shift firmness is adjusted, right? So if the transmission is shifting while you're going in a straight line, it's going to be more firm, more positive, and the shift point itself is going to be at a different RPM. If you are in a turn. So if you're mid-turn and the transmission shifts, it's going to be a little bit softer. It's going to soften that for you, obviously, so it doesn't unsettle the rear end of the car and send you into a spin. But I thought that was really, really cool.
It is. I mean, because if you think about it, I mean, what's the first thing you learn driving, stick shift rear wheel drive? I mean, unless you want to get sideways, you don't, pop the clutch in the middle of a turn. I mean, I know drifters use clutch kicking too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's either a very fun lesson to learn or a very scary lesson to learn.
But I mean, the fact that they have adjusted it to the point where it can tell whether you're, I'm assuming through wheel speed sensors, if you're in a turn, and change the shift firmness based on that, that's amazing. That blows my mind.
Yeah, it was really cool. When he started explaining it to me, I was like, okay, you're talking a little bit above my head right now about the clutch engagement and the way that stuff works. So I really want to get him on the podcast. I would love to get him on the RodCAST and talk about transmission, modern DCT transmission theory. I think it'd be really cool because he
Yeah,
could
for
explain
sure.
it much better than I could.
Yeah, I mean, the modern transmission stuff just blows me away. Like I know that I'm an engine guy, right? But I wouldn't say that transmissions confuse me. Dual clutch transmissions confuse me.
Yeah,
Like
man.
they're above my head. But they're awesome.
But dude, it's some type of black magic going on inside that transmission housing, and I don't know what it is, but it's pretty incredible. I mean, for me, a guy who really loves a manual transmission, to say that driving this car with the DCT, it kind of reminded me of driving a manual transmission. I mean, that's saying something.
Well, I mean, honest to God, I do believe if that were to come out in just the standard GT line, that might get me out of my car. I might consider.
I think we're gonna start seeing it, man. It's gonna be a more common transmission. I mean, think about it. They're using it in this thing. They're using an adaptation of it in the C8. It's gonna be, that trickle down effect is gonna take place. As long as America's still making high horsepower cars, it's gonna be a thing. People are gonna start demanding them. People are gonna say, "I want one." And if the big three don't start supplying them, right? People are just gonna do it themselves.
Ooh, swap. That would be. Man,
Imagine a world.
brain
Imagine a world where people are automatic swapping, like DCT swapping, away from like a TR6060 or something.
Oh, that would be awesome. And I mean, I know they can handle power because I mean, Ken Bionis over at Palm Beach Dyno, I've been following him, just because we're buddies. But I mean, he's putting over 1,000 horsepower through one, and I know everybody was really worried.
Sorry, Greg. I'm like I said, I'm out here on location. I don't really have a phone charger or anything. I just want to make sure I have battery. But yeah, man. Well, okay. So it's an obvious upgrade to the 10R80, which was a very capable transmission. Pretty cool,
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a torque converter transmission.
Yep. What do you think the power limit's going to be for this guy?
I can't tell you because, like I said, I mean, Palm Beach Dyno's already over 1,000 with it. I don't know if Ken is into destructive testing. I don't know. I mean, honestly, he may be down to just keep making power till something breaks. I'm not going to put words in his mouth or speak for him, but I would wholly support that form of testing.
Let's talk about the interior of the car for a second, Greg. Can I just say it's fantastic? It's so good.
Okay. You've been in my car. How much of an upgrade is it? I mean, I know it's going to be an upgrade. I'm not saying that, but
about $100,000 worth.
Oof. Well, honestly, that's saying something because Ford has been criticized in the past of their expensive cars not feeling like expensive cars.
Okay.
Saying that isn't.
In my defense as a journalist, I wasn't too critical of all the bits that you don't touch. Okay, everything that you do touch, that's what I was critiquing. If given more time with the car, hint, hint, Ford, if anybody's watching, I might be able to speak to that a little bit more. But my base opinion is that the Recaros that this thing comes with, fantastic. The Alcantara that they wrap these things in is really nice. The bolstering is like super aggressive, and with that Alcantara, it just holds you in place. When we went, we wore Hans devices, of course, and then we wore the helmet. But all we used was a 3-point seatbelt that these cars come with. And I didn't feel like nervous. I didn't feel like I was jostling around in my seat. I didn't feel like I needed a harness. Those seats are really good.
That's cool.
Yeah, same thing could be said about the steering wheel. Steering wheel is great. Also Alcantara wrapped, flat bottom, what you would expect in a modern super muscle car. One thing that I think is weird, and Ford engineers, if you are listening, why the knob like gear selector? I get that you don't want the stick, right? That's horrible too. But like, why place the knob? It's right here on the center console, right next to where your knee would be, right? And I just think it's weird. I'm like hyper aware of it because I don't want to bump it and like shift it, into like neutral or something. And that probably would never happen. But it's just a weird place to put it, in my opinion.
I mean, it's been the butt of a lot of memes. Not the GT500 in particular, but gear shift.
Greg, are you getting a lot of wind noise, man? Because
Yeah.
Again, I'm out here in the bay and it's super windy. I mean, I'm like, my hair's going all crazy. So if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll try to move to a spot where you can.
I mean, there's wind, but we can hear you.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to clean that up in post?
Probably not.
Okay. Hey guys, listen. If you're watching, we try to put out content as best we can. But I'm shooting on location here at Sonoma Raceway, and I'm doing it from my cell phone because my laptop battery died. So we're trying for you guys. If you can't hear me so great, well, leave a comment in the comment section, and Greg and I will ignore it.
No, we'll read it and feel really bad. But
I'm just kidding. We read all the comments, and we appreciate your viewership. I would not ignore you guys. I would answer you. But back to this GT500. Greg, continue your line of questioning.
All right. So, we've determined the power output is similar, which we expect from similarly sized blowers. Refinement. I mean, that is such a subjective thing. But just as a car, could you see driving this car back to Temecula and not stressing yourself? Like not getting out of it going, oh my God, not feeling 100 years old when you crawl out of the car.
Okay, it's funny that you say that because as I was doing a hot lap as a passenger in the car, I was having a full-blown conversation while the driver, I forgot his name, it'll be in the article, while the driver is going full tilt boogie around this track, and we're having a conversation just like you and I are right now. And my exact words to him were, you could daily drive this car and beat the hell out of it, and it would be fantastic. I don't know how it would do on a touring trip like that, like 1,000 miles or so. But I don't think it would be bad, dude. I think it'd be pretty good. Maybe not as nice as the Challenger because it's a very roomy car comparatively, but certainly just as good as the Camaro.
Okay, I mean, and that's interesting. You have a lot of seat time in the Challenger, with all the stuff you did, and I mean, between you and I and the Mustangs, I mean, I don't have a problem, but I'm also shorter than you, so the lack of space, I get into the Challenger, and I mean, I feel like I could play ping pong. I mean, let's be real, I'm short, so
I should preface this by saying that I love the Challenger's interior. It's like for me top dog because I'm a taller guy. I'm about 6'1", 6'ish, 6'1.5", and I like the extra leg room. I like being able to stretch out, kind of lean back. If you're on a track like this, then it doesn't really matter. You're going to have your seat moved up forward. You're going to have the steering wheel positioned in a way that you're not T-Rex arm, but you're, definitely have a shorter throw, etc. Right? But on a touring trip like you are describing, I appreciate the room.
Yeah. Okay. And the Mustang feels like it has that. I mean, obviously not to the same extent, but I mean, you wouldn't feel like your knees were in your chest.
You wouldn't feel like you got ripped off for sure. You'd be like, this is fantastic, especially if you'd never driven anything like any of the other, like either the Camaro or the Challenger. You wouldn't feel slighted at all because this is fantastic. The seats are comfortable. Now, if you were in the back seat, that's a whole different story. And I think everybody knows that this essentially does not have a back seat. Neither does the Camaro. The Challenger, small person.
Now, something I noticed in driving my S550, obviously that is not a lightweight car, but you do not feel its weight. Now, how about the GT500?
Again, great point, Greg. That's a really, really excellent point. 100%. You hit the nail on the head, brother. So this thing weighs 4,200 pounds. I think right around 4,200, maybe a little bit less with the carbon wheels and everything. But yeah, right around that range, right? And it wears it so well, man. It is so balanced. You don't feel like you're driving a 4,000-pound vehicle at all. The power delivery and just to your point, the way that it's linear and it's just nice and smooth, that DCT transmission delivering that power, it's so nice, man. And the car is so well balanced that you're slinging this thing around this track, and you would swear that you were in like a roadster or something. It's really, really well balanced. So it wears that weight well.
That's good to hear. I mean, because it blew me away, jumping into a significantly heavier 2020 Mustang than my 94 Mustang, but my 94 Mustang feeling like it weighed probably about 500 pounds more, even though it probably weighs 500 pounds less.
Yeah, that's so okay. So what's the weight difference exactly between that high power 4-cylinder versus the GT500 or the GT350?
Well, I don't know what a GT350 weighs off the lot, but I believe the high performance EcoBoost was at mid 36s.
Okay,
Maybe touching on 37.
dude, that's quite a bit different. That's
Yeah.
big difference. But you're also talking about a naturally aspirated, no, excuse me, a turbo 4-cylinder versus a supercharged V8, right? But so you got the 5.2 plus the 2.4 liter supercharger that's sitting on top. So you have 7.8 or 6 liters of displacement.
Plus you've got an air to water intercooler, which is not there in the EcoBoost. It's an air to air, which is immensely lighter. Yeah, it adds weight, but not anything like an air to water system.
Yeah, good point.
Plus, I mean, let's see. So we got all that weight up front. And that's the thing. All that weight is focused up front. You could imagine it would hurt handling, but
okay,
obviously.
So no, it doesn't. And it's interesting that you touch on that because the mag ride suspension in this thing is awesome. So there's like these little sensors, on the knuckles. Oh, that's something new for 2021. So the knuckles on these things, and I think that's kind of a weird nomenclature, but that's what Ford calls them. They call them the knuckle, right, or the spindle. So that's also going to trickle down, even down to the high power 4-cylinder.
Okay.
So those you're going to get a little bit added steering angle as well as some different suspension travel. So that's good. But anyways, the mag ride, dude. There's like a little sensor, behind the wheel, and as the suspension travels, it delivers electrical impulses to the suspension. And there's like some type of magnetic suspension, or magnetic liquid, hence the mag ride nomenclature. That when those electrical impulses are delivered to that magnetic fluid, it basically acts as a shock absorber, right? So it makes it more dense, right? So it goes from being almost like a liquid to almost a solid with that electrical impulse, and so when you're driving this thing out on the track, it's incredible. Like I said, this is a relatively bumpy track, but even in track mode with with the suspension turned up, it felt really good.
And that honestly, that's one thing that I wish I had the patience to order was the MagnaRide.
MagnaRide, that's the sorry.
But it was literally car configured exactly as I wanted, minus the handling package, which had the MagnaRide, sitting there on the lot, ready to go right now.
Hey man, you could be talking yourself into a GT.
I mean, if Ford wanted to just send a GT500 over, I would. But I'm just saying, that is one feature that I wish I had got. And especially now, talking about improving it further than it already, because it's already a very refined system. So now you're talking about it being improved. And I really didn't want to go back to the car lot for 2021. But as you and I have talked about, kind of behind the scenes, there's some color changes that have messed with me.
There's a new color too, and I don't know if you've seen this one. It's the Heritage. So they had a GT350 Heritage here. Are you familiar?
Is that the Oxford white deal?
It's the Wimbledon white.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, Wimbledon white with the blue stripes.
Guardsman blue stripes, my man.
Oh, I've seen pictures. I can't imagine seeing it in person. It's
so good, man. That eggshell-ish white color with those really electric blue stripes. It looks so good, man. And it's looked good since the 60s.
Yeah. White cars are not usually my cup of tea. I'd rock that combo.
It's understated and beautiful, and it's like an iconic American racing colorway. I really love it.
Yeah.
Greg, I think my battery's going to die. How long have we gone, man?
We're at 40 minutes now.
Fantastic. I think we could do a wrap up. This was a great introduction to the GT500 review that I'm going to be doing. I wish we could go longer, but I'm at like 3% battery life, so we better hop off. You
We're
guys,
probably going to lose.
yeah, if you guys want to see more content like this, if you guys want to see more reviews of late model vehicles that are coming out, please let us know. Greg and I have also toyed with the idea of comparing, let's say, a brand new GT500 to a classic GT500 and see how they stack up. Let us know if that's something you guys would like to see. Greg, before I sign off, man, what's going on for this week? What does Engine Labs have going up? Let us know.
Engine Labs, we just posted a cool 1,000 horsepower naturally aspirated budget off the shelf build.
Interesting.
I know everybody's like, oh, 1,000 horsepower is easy. Well, it's not that easy to actually aspirate, and it's really not easy when you don't use a single custom part.
Yeah, man, that's wild.
Well, I mean, that's going to be a really cool deal.
That's fantastic, dude. I can't wait to read it. And that'll be live tomorrow when this airs, no?
Yep.
Awesome. So on Street Muscle, oh boy, we have a third gen Camaro feature that just went live this week. People will really like that. I think it's kind of cool. We're ushering in a new age of like classic cars, dare I say, from the 90s. Greg, is that a classic car?
I can get a classic plate for the Mustang.
Oh, okay.
I mean, so.
And that's a 94. This is like a 1990 IROC. Sorry, guys. Yeah, this is like a 1990 IROC. I think you can call them classics now, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's going to start a fight, but it's true.
All right, guys. Hey, my battery's going to die. I got to sign off, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for following. Thank you so much for subscribing. Tune in every Friday here on Street Muscle's Facebook page. You guys can watch the RodCAST with me and Greg. It's been awesome, guys. I'll catch you next time. Peace.